What's good, YouTube? So, today I'm going to be introducing a new type of video format. So, I think what I'm going to do now is first part of the video, I'm going to be doing philosophy, motivational content, stuff like that. In the second half of the video, I'm going to just do my normal gym video. So, um, today we have upper body today. Um, and the topic we have today is why suffering builds character. So, without further ado, let's just hop right into the video. I'm gonna just define suffering, So, suffering is kind of complex because it kind of has many micro definitions like failure, rejection, loss, discomfort, struggle. But suffering is basically something that is kind of and it's different for everyone too. It's kind of like everyone thinks of different things as suffering. Some people might think that having to take the bus to school is suffering, and then some people might think that having to drive all the time is suffering. And yeah, so suffering is very complex, but it's basically something that you feel is discomforting. And then why people avoid suffering, comfort feels safe is the main reason, because comfort feels safe. That's why in depressive episodes, when people get in depressive episodes, they're bed rotting, couch rotting, just sitting, doom scrolling on their phone. Because when you're in a depressive episode, doing anything outside of nothing is discomfort. So comfort feels safe, and that's what people want to feel when they're suffering. So that is why people avoid suffering. Now, one of the reasons why suffering builds character is because suffering reveals character. So, you know, hard times expose habits, values, and mindset. If you have a friend, for example, he might be the nicest person you've ever met in your life, but say he got an eviction notice or his car broke down on the side of the road. You're going to see and hear some of the meanest shit come out of his mouth and his body language, all that. So, suffering reveals character, and that's why it builds character. Because to even build character, you have to know what your character is. Now, suffering builds resilience. So, suffering calluses your mind, makes you mentally stronger. It's like when you're in the gym, right? You're in the gym, you're pumping iron, all that good stuff. You're breaking down your muscle, you're breaking down those muscle fibers, and it's building you're building resilience to the weight as you're doing it. That's why progressive overload is a thing, because you could do a weight 6 times, the first week. The second week you do it 8 times. Next week you do 10 times. The next week you can up the weight and do it 6 times. So your mind is just like that, because your mind's a muscle as well. So when your mind goes through obstacles and adversities, it strengthens and builds your mind, and it builds resilience. And that is the number one way to strengthen your mind, is by going through hardship. And it's unfortunate that's the case, but that's just how life is designed. Now, we have some examples of suffering building character. Gym progress. You're suffering through the gym, going through the pain of going through the gym, and then it builds you by giving you a better physique, giving you the ability to keep going even when you're going through pain, even when it hurts, even when you're tired, stuff like that. Sports, you suffer the stress, the pressure, the in-game moments, the practices, all that, the weight rooms, all that stuff, but it builds you because it makes you mentally stronger and physically stronger. So sports is one of the best ways to build yourself, in terms of suffering. A lot of athletes don't think of it as suffering, because a lot of athletes, they love to do it, so it's not really. Breakups, failure in business, loss and setbacks, stuff like that builds your character. Now, my counterpoint is not all suffering is necessary. A lot of suffering is good for you because it builds you and it makes you stronger as a person. It makes you a better person. It also helps you understand people when they're going through their hardships and adversities and they act certain ways towards you. It also helps you understand why they might be acting a certain way or why they might be doing something. You know, it helps you understand people better when you go through these adversities. But some suffering is truly just suffering. Some suffering you can't build anything from it. It's truly suffering. Like, you know, like family members dying. I don't think of that as suffering you can build from. That is truly just it's just suffering and it's just a part of life and it's just something that everyone has to go through. It's just suffering. Stuff like that. Some suffering is just suffering. So don't glorify struggle. Don't glorify struggling and suffering. And don't put yourself through suffering because you think that it just builds your character, because sometimes suffering could hurt you really bad and there's no building from that. So, and then my closing question is, what if the thing you're trying to escape is shaping who you become? You know, I I feel like that's a good question everyone should think about and really try to decipher what it, you know, what it's asking and to give a genuine answer. Um because sometimes when you're running from struggle, it's hurting you worse than actually getting through the struggle. Yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Um, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you guys for watching me. Um, but yeah, we have an upper body lift. So I hope you guys enjoy that lift. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. God bless you guys.